Hello YouTube. Today we're going to learn all you will need to know about gross domestic product or GDP. What GDP does for us is simple. It is the best way to understand any country's economy. However, the whole process of GDP is not as simple as it initially sounds. Gross domestic product acts as an economic indicator that measures the country's total output. This includes everything produced by all the people and all the companies in the country. There are four components that go into calculating GDP: personal consumption, expenditures, business investment, government spending, and exports minus imports. Using these components, anyone can easily calculate an annual GDP using the standard formula C plus I plus G plus X minus M. There are two kinds of GDP: nominal and real. Nominal GDP is the raw measurement that leaves the price increases in the estimate. United States nominal GDP in 2012 was $16.224 trillion. Real GDP also calculates GDP. However, it eliminates the effects of inflation. The Bureau of Economic Analysis, or the BEA, calculates both forms of GDP. The BEA measures GDP quarterly. However, the BEA also revises the quarterly estimate each month as it receives updated data. GDP can also be used to compare different countries' economies. However, some countries may just have a larger output because they have a larger population. To get a more accurate comparison, it is helpful to use GDP per capita. This divides GDP by the number of people and will show the real productivity of the population. Although GDP per capita is crucial to comparing GDP, the best way is to use real GDP per capita. This takes out the effect of inflation, exchange rates, and differences in population. Another important economic indicator is the GDP growth rate. The GDP growth rate is the percent increase in GDP from quarter to quarter. It tells you exactly how fast a country's economy is growing. If it produces less than the quarter before it contracts and the GDP growth rate is negative, this signals a recession. If it stays negative long enough, the recession turns into a depression. As bad as a recession is, you also don't want the GDP growth rate to be too high. If it did, we would get inflation. The ideal GDP growth rate is between 2 to 3%. To have a growth rate of 2 to 3% would mean that the economy is healthily growing and continuing to progress. At this point, you may be asking yourself, why does this matter to me? And I can answer that question for you right now. Let's say the GDP growth rate is speeding up, and the Fed raises interest rates to stem inflation. In this case, you would want to lock in a fixed rate mortgage because you know that an adjustable rate mortgage will start charging high rates next year. Then, let's say the GDP is slowing down or is negative. You would want to start dusting off your resume because declining GDP usually leads to layoffs and unemployment. So as you can see, just by following and predicting gross domestic product growth, you can be ahead in whatever financial situation you may be in. Another beneficial part of the BEA's report on GDP would be to look at which sectors of the economy are growing and which are declining. Just by watching this, it can guide you to opportunities for successful investment. Anyway, to wrap things up, I hope you have learned something about gross domestic product and are one of the smart people that are able to use it to your advantage in life.